And my lesson focuses on tricksters and pranks and the lessons we can learn from tricksters both in the past and the modern day. So a few examples of tricksters that used to be are people such as Anansi, Loki, Ishu, which are all mostly from polytheistic societies, and focuses on this kind of character that was neither really a good person nor a bad person, but operated in this kind of gray area between the two. So in people such as Coyote, he would have one story in which he was a great hero and he saves all of society and he's beloved and people throw parades and big festivities for him. And then another one, he brings death into the world for which he's completely cast out. He's starved and people aren't even allowed to look at him. So a lot of times the tricksters such as these operate in a gray area and are kind of boundary crossers. So rather than being good or bad, what they force people to do is to question their own beliefs and to kind of think about these characters not as people that they should look up to or people they should hate, but in terms of their own beliefs and whether in this circumstance what they did was right and whether in this circumstance what they did was wrong. So people think that tricksters no longer exist because a lot of these myths are thousands of years old, but they still do in the modern world. And examples of these people are Sacha Baron Cohen or Ellen DeGeneres. Well, they kind of pull these pranks that a lot of people would just look at and laugh at, but a lot of times can still teach us the lessons that they taught in the past. So a couple of these lessons are things like the value of hierarchy, or things in which gods are brought down to just the humans level, or in other things where, in other things where laughing at yourself, or whether the values of society and the people around you are things that you agree with or things that you should kind of veer away from. So an example of a myth that is echoed both in something that's thousands of years old and in a very modern TV show, Punk'd, is the lesson of hierarchies and gods. So in the old example, Ishu is this trickster that kind of comes along, and there's the god above him that he doesn't like very much. Her name is Mau. And so Mau has this great, huge yam garden, and she loves it very much. But one day Ishu sneaks in. But before he sneaks in, he takes Mau's sandals and then he goes walking through her garden and steals a bunch of her yams. So the next day Mau discovers this theft and is incredibly angry and goes out and tries to figure out who has stolen all of her yams. So she goes and she questions lots of people, she makes a huge fuss about it, and then in the end Ishu comes up and asks her, "How are you so sure that you didn't steal the yams yourself?" So Mau goes and she takes her sandals and measures them against the footprints that were found in the garden, and found that she was actually the one who had supposedly taken her yams because her sandals had matched with the prints that were there. So in the end, Mau was humiliated. She goes off by herself, and overall people kind of laugh, and people are kind of like, oh haha, this great person who thought that she was so great, who was a god, who was perfect, and all of these things, was actually made a mistake and is just as human as the rest of us. So an example of this hierarchy in the modern world is if Ashton Kutcher on the TV show Punk'd. It's an early 2000 TV show in which Ashton Kutcher would take these celebrities and kind of put them in these ridiculous situations where they'd have to react or they'd have to show a side of them that normally people wouldn't think of. So celebrities imitate many of the past tropes of things that people thought of in gods, or the kind of perfection or idolization that people looked at. So one example of a prank that is similar to kind of this Ishu Mau prank of the past is one in which Ashton Kutcher went up to Justin Timberlake's house and made it look like Justin Timberlake had been foreclosed on, and Justin Timberlake was very upset and was almost reduced to tears. And so this kind of emotional reaction of a celebrity is not something that most people see, and also it looked like Justin Timberlake had made a mistake by having his house foreclosed on and things. So the example of this shows how Justin Timberlake has become humanized just by being in this situation and this sort of prank. And so Ashton Kutcher, even though this kind of prank was just it was kind of over the top, it was very ridiculous, it shows that hierarchies, whether they existed in the past or today, are still very present and very prevalent. And by breaking them down, it makes us kind of question whether we really should have these things.